Hi everyone, Leanne here with your very first lesson in soul contracts. So let's just start by talking about why you even would have soul contracts. What are soul contracts? When do they get made, created? So a soul contract is created pre-conception, so before you are brought into physical form, and it is done with a team of people that are kind of your life review team. Now, we say people, I say people lightly. Um, First of all, if you understand the concept of oneness, they're all you. It's not really that separate, but when you're coming into this separate consciousness, they are perceived as separate individuals. And those separate individuals are previous past life contract people, guides, angels, like all kinds of different parts of your team that come together and talk about your soul consciousness and what you want to learn as far as when you get back in a body. What kind of experiences do you want to have to expand your soul consciousness? All right. Now, some contracts have been created way, 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 way back in your incarnations and just haven't completed themselves yet. And those contracts just come again and again and again. And sometimes when you get into that review space, they just get re-swizzled. So let's say one of your soul contracts is to learn how to see various perspectives that you don't necessarily agree with or live in. Well, you may be an aggressor of someone who's like a dictator who says you can't have any perceptions but what I say. And then the next lifetime, you might be this very intense, fighter for for a lower cause that needs it elevated up, and trying to get people to see that perspective of that cause. So it just plays out various ways as you begin to learn the lesson. And these contracts are made with other people. So they're made to say, I'm going to learn this lesson in this lifetime. And you have various people that you might select to sprinkle on your path to say, teach me about that. If I've met you and I haven't learned enough, go ahead and really hammer me with this. And so I get it. So you can actually kind of start practicing some acceptance of some of the people who really bugged you over time or feel like crunchy in their relationships, because those people are contracted to wake you up in some way and create some of that with you so that you'll learn. Okay, so being open to the fact that there's lessons there in your frustrating, experiences allows you to have a moment to kind of pause and neutralize and see, oh, there's a soul contract playing out here. So soul contracts are made with other people. Sometimes it's just a brief moment, like an unforgettable moment that you've had with someone and it kind of changed your whole direction or purpose. That could be a soul contract. And soul contracts could also be marriages and children. Children are always soul contracts. Most of them are made like 99.9% of them are made along the family line, even with grandmothers and things like that, because those children contracts are made throughout. If you kind of remember the concept that if you know this concept that all the eggs that your mother had to make you were in her body while she was in your grandmother. So you got energetic imprints from your grandmother and your mother as you were created. So those contracts go back. And so if you're one of those people who is not contracted to have children in this lifetime, that's okay. That's totally that's part of your progress, right? Is to not experience children, but also just knowing that those of you who have had children, even if you've had them on accident or had them with people that you're now divorced from, those contracts were made among the group of you for that creation to happen. So I know people will ask me about abortions and about miscarriages, and even those are soul contracts. And sometimes those soul contracts, when they're created, they were never meant to be like come to full fruition. Maybe the miscarriage was the contract, or the abortion was the contract in order for you to learn something. So just kind of acknowledging that a lot of the things that seem kind of haphazard are really on your soul path. Now, this doesn't override free will. It does create some fate because you've got, these things that you're kind of fated to run into, but you can also choose to learn the lessons in different ways. So, and actually by taking this class, you're probably making a different choice than to just struggle through your soul contracts, but instead to go ahead and take some conscious creator space with it and say, I am in charge of my soul contracts and my experience with them. So free will was established. You signed those contracts before you came here. They were not imposed on you. And we'll talk later in another class about past lives and karma. But when I'm talking soul contracts, I'm talking about the things that you agreed to. So your free will was intact when you did it. You may forget when you get here and you get kind of miserable about it, but the contract itself was made at the beginning before you came in. Okay? Now, this is the whole goal of soul contracts is soul expansion. So when we are in this separate reality and we're not in our oneness self, we're not all connected because we are all connected, but in our consciousness, we get very separate here. We are living in this way where we're thinking of ourselves as an individual, and that individual is having a perceptual experience that is very different from anyone around you. You are having your own unique lens. And the soul likes to kind of play around with those lenses and learn various angles to the lens, that kind of thing. So, and oftentimes too, the soul will encounter things that it's very confused about or doesn't know why it exists, and so then may plunk themselves into that scenario in order to learn about that existence. So, for example, maybe there's a big, strong feeling that starving children shouldn't exist on the planet. So then the soul might actually choose a consciousness where they go be a starving child in order to understand how that happens in conscious creation space, what that's doing for the soul expansion, that kind of thing. And then again, that contract may play out in various ways. I mean, you may end up being the starving child, and then you may end up being the big fat cat over here who has more food than they should eat, and every version in between. And that's to try and learn kind of that energy about what it means to have enough energy to consume as food in order for you to live in this planet. So these are just examples of consciousness that plays out. Now, when we go through this whole class together, the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is set some intentions about why you even want to know about soul contracts. And that's the first thing we're going to kind of talk about on our calls together is what do you want to know about soul contracts, and why do you want to know them? You will get your pre-loaded lessons in your inbox for the next 4 weeks. You'll get one 15-minute lesson here and another 15-minute lesson there that's already pre-recorded. But our time together is going to be a chance for you to apply this knowledge directly to yourself. Okay, so thinking of yourself in a way that you can kind of experiment and play around with being a conscious manifester with your soul contracts. One of the things too about soul contracts is when they're complete, they literally just feel like they just dissipate. They don't have a whole big drama. I mean, the drama is normally in the middle of the contract when you're trying to figure out the lesson. But once you're on the other side of the contract, it literally the energy just kind of all fades away. So if you have a lot of energy about something and you're frustrated or you're struggling, and these, of course, I'm talking about contracts where you're struggling with them. I mean, you have good positive contracts too, but normally you don't ask to change them because they're going well. But the contracts that are not feeling good, oftentimes you're right in the thick of the lesson, and you won't know what you know until you're on the other side. And so there isn't a whole lot of like, oh, I got to just learn my lesson to push through the contract. Instead, relax into the situation, relax into the contract, and let it play out so that you may learn, right? Forcing the lesson in is just not going to work when it comes to completing soul contracts. So, and that also goes for being able to leave a contract prematurely. Like, you can't leave a contract prematurely. You will have likely then pick up other people who are going to try and help you get that lesson. You'll do kind of that healing spiral where you're basically coming to the pattern over and over again, where you are not able to completely understand what is happening, why you keep attracting the same thing. That's a good sign you're in a soul contract, or you're working with your shadow. And it can be both, actually. So shadow work, which there's a course on that too if you need to check that out. But shadow work and soul contracts often go hand in hand, because it's hard to work through your soul contracts with efficiency and love and acceptance if you got a lot of shadow showing up. So a lot of unhealed wounds and things like that. But soul contracts can be really quite fun to play with, but they are also you can misread them. Your ego can definitely attach itself to these things and say, oh, this is a soul contract and here's why. So you want to be careful of that too. I've seen people play out the soul contracts thing in like kind of this like enlightened, like, or, pretend enlightenment kind of thing. Like, we have a soul contract together. And, and we all have soul contracts. We all have lots of soul contracts. I mean, hundreds. And so those soul contracts are not like, I mean, yeah, it's something special, but to kind of elevate it into this kind of like fluffy, etheric, like amazing miracle kind of thing, that would be kind of displacing it, because the whole dang thing is a miracle. All of this that where we come and we cycle in through our consciousness is the amazing part. So giving yourself, it's the space to look at a soul contract, but don't like give your power away to it. And don't let anybody else take your power away either. Like, if I've seen people come to each other and say, well, you're wearing a soul contract, so you have to succumb to me. Well, and this isn't saying, okay, I have to be treated badly. It's just more about, I'm going to, whatever struggle or suffering I am going through, I'm going to let that kind of sink away, and I'm going to let myself be more conscious about what I'm creating. So when you think about this going forward, so your first little bit of homework is just to see if you can identify the relationships in your life that you think you have soul contracts with. Now, here's the thing. Spouses, children, people you have children with, parents, we'll talk about those relationships and things a little bit later, always going to have soul contracts there, okay? Multiple, okay? People who are in your life a lot. But also see if you can explore some of the times when you just had split-second interactions. Like, for example, my teenager, he just got his license, and he was kind of being careless with his approach to having a car. He was just like, it's going to be fine. And he was looking down at his radio and ran a red light and hit another car. Now, they weren't hurt, thankfully, but both cars were totaled, and he wasn't hurt and they weren't hurt. But it was like their contract to be like, boy, wake up. You have now a vehicle in your hands. Okay, so that happened a week after he got his license. Bummer, huh? But that will forever be in his brain. It'll be in our brain. It'll forever have changed us. And that was a brief soul contract to get him kind of on a straight path with his driving, so that it didn't have to be worse than that. Okay? So if you just kind of let yourself think about those split moments too, write them down. Get a journal going for this class so you can begin to kind of start putting the pieces together, if you will. And do give some thought to what you want out of this information. You're going to forever have this access to this video now, and so you can come back and revisit the soul contracts class as often as you like when you're going through whatever you're going through. But it's also whatever you intend is what your lens will get out of this class. So if you intend to work on your relationship with your mother, for example, then that is going to be the primary thought, the primary thing that keeps coming around while you get your lessons. Okay, and then that you may later have a different soul contract exploration or intention, and you might want to take this over again as far as, the video part. Okay? All right. I hope this finds you well. I hope you guys are excited as I am to get going on this journey. See you soon.